Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we're following up last week's live look at Vampire Hunter D, the 1985 movie. This week we are looking at the year 2000 anime, Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have. So warning, spoilers ahead from Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, co-author with my partner, Tony Salvaggio, of Clockworks, coming on paperback in September from Humanoids. With me from Austin is Mr. Drew Edwards, editor-in-chief of HorrorMovies.net, writer for Rockabilly Online, and creator and writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man. Say hello, Drew.
Hello, Drew, question mark.
Hello. Also in Austin, as I mentioned before, Tony Salvaggio, tech director of Rooster Teeth Productions, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead bassist of and co-creator of the comic Psycom from Tokyopop, and yes, Clockworks, which is coming in paperback from Humanoids next month in just a couple of weeks. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. And finally, from Austin, Jamie Barr is a musician, pinup model, educator, and the lead vocalist and upright bassist for Austin's premier all-female rock and roll band, Danger Cakes. And you can find out about their latest shows and their album, Quarter Life Crisis, at dangercakes.net. Say hi, Jamie.
Hello.
Hello. And I actually just saw all y'all in Texas just last week, and that was really awesome. This is our first time recording since we were all together.
I think I'm still coming down from the Ecto Cooler sugar high.
Yeah.
Ecto Cooler, man.
Yeah,
that was body good. Oh wait, that's not.
Drew brought all of this Ghostbusters branded high C.
Yeah, that was Tony. Tony,
yeah,
like,
I was the hookup.
Oh, Tony, you brought it? Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
Tony was the
I
Ecto
brought
Cooler
it
pusher.
for Drew. Yeah, it was a whole thing.
And Tony, and Drew would actually go out into the audience like Phil Donahue, basically, with a microphone and just sort of run up and down the aisles, shoving the microphone in different audience members' faces and compelling them to ask questions. At least that was why.
that's how you envision it.
That's my fever dream.
That's the narrative.
My mom was on Phil Donahue. I can't believe you pulled out that reference.
That's a reference I don't think anybody will get unless they're of a certain.
I got it.
Well, I'm glad. I'm really glad. He was a silver tiger, was Phil Donahue. I think
Silver tiger.
Should try.
I don't think I'm quite silver tiger status yet. I think.
Not yet.
All right.
I got some gray hairs, but not enough to be Phil Donahue.
Let's get our opening thoughts. Jamie, I think it's rare for some crazy reason. It's rare that we start with you. So let's go Jamie, Tony, Drew, and then I'll say anything that comes to mind after that you guys haven't touched on. So brief opening thoughts on Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust. Lay it on us, Jamie.
I was excited to see this movie. This is my first time viewing it, and I did like it, although I was expecting it to be a little bit more along the lines of like an explanation as to why he has the little face on his hands. But it wasn't really. But I kind of felt like that face drove me nuts. Like, I was like, shut up, face. Like, you got on my nerve. Like, and I don't know if you're supposed to feel that way or not, but
no,
I don't know.
It's not his favorite either. I mean, it's a parasite, so.
Okay.
For the listeners who haven't watched this, for some reason, Vampire Hunter D, the laconic man with no name kind of character who's here, the one thing that distinguishes him from Clint Eastwood is that he possesses a parasite on his hand that at times actually is literally a face with like lips and cavernous eyes and a nose, and it talks.
A big old mouth that
yeah.
inhales and exhales and sometimes throws up and sometimes eats spells and just can't shut up for this movie. Where the first movie barely spoke. It was like a side note, and I kind of liked that it was mysterious. This one, that bothered me. But I did find myself kind of also feeling weird that I was like, am I supposed to be rooting for the vampires? Usually, you find yourself like rooting for I would imagine, like, the vampire killers, the hunters. But this time I was kind of like, oh, they just love each other.
Yeah,
Let them, die together if they want to. But,
very good.
Yeah, that was...
I didn't mean to interrupt you also. I apologize.
That's all right. But I was just going to say, like, I was a little kind of surprised by the moral ambiguity of a lot of the characters in this film, and I don't know. I did enjoy it. I feel like it was definitely has a lot of great talking points. So I'll get on with it.
Mr. Tony, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, you recommended this movie. I think you brought us this whole series and said, I want to do this series. That's the way I remember it, anyway.
Well, I mean, we were doing it because we were at Anime Fest, and why stop with the first Vampire Hunter D when you can do both of them? Yeah. And unfortunately, there's only 2 right now. So, I
what
really
are your
like the
opening
movie.
thoughts on Bloodlust?
I really like the movie. I think it's interesting that the DVD I have only has the English dub.
Yeah.
Because it was dubbed first. I mean, the first anime was decently popular, but it was way more popular in the States for reasons that we covered, in our previous podcast. So the real thrust of it was, hey, let's do this thing because we think that, it'll be really good in America. So, I mean, that was the big thing. The animation's great, but it's also a lot more detailed. And even those 2000s, it's in the way that Vampire Hunter D, the first movie, was very 80s. This one is definitely of the 90s. Like, the character designs, the intricate detail, etc., very 90s. I still love it because of all of that. And to answer Jamie's question, if you read the books, there's a lot more about the left hand and its parasitic nature and such. Also, I think, like a lot of American dubs, I think that the talkiness of the hand is partially due to the fact that a lot of times when they're in the booth, they'll just kind of let them riff on things. And I think that voice actor, just judging from the way that it plays out, I think they probably had some suggestions. Maybe I wasn't there in the booth, so I don't know. But my take on it was that I think they gave him a lot of leeway, and they just kept what they wanted. Like, hey, that's a pretty good line. Let's just keep that, resulting in a super talky hand. Although he is in that same kind of vein, in the very sarcastic, very sardonic in the books. So it's not outside the realm. It's just he is way more talky in this.
Yeah, I just felt like he went like over the top. It went like Gilbert Gottfried, where it was
I think that my guess is that they may have just either they were riffing in the script, or like I said, having been like I did, yelling and screaming kind of like extras bits. What amounts to extras in animation, and you go in there and people are recording, and a lot of times in the English dub, if somebody's turned away from the camera where they don't have to match the mouth flaps, you've got actors who are, theater, a lot of times, actors in theater, if not actors on screen, and, they'll riff and, turn out stuff, and then it's up to the director to keep what they want, especially if it's on the script. So that's my guess. I'm sure I could probably get in touch with somebody who knows somebody who worked on this because of where it was done. But that's how I felt rewatching it as well. Like, there's a lot of little ha-ha-ha asides that I, felt kind of like the actor riffing on, hey, I'm this hand and I have this demeanor. Let's go with that, Anyway.
We've seen that actor before, by the way. Mike McShane is the voice of the hand, and he was Friar Tuck in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And I remember Friar Tuck. His voice had that deep voice, that really sort of cool, thick voice.
I mean, I think he plays the hand really well, but to Jamie's point, A few less lines wouldn't have been, I guess, too bad.
Yeah, it was just felt like it was just like so much. Where I felt like it's such a beautiful movie that it like almost felt like it was like chewing the scenery. Like that's the perfect way to put it.
Well, I'll save my comment for when I get to it. Mr. Drew, what are your initial thoughts? And we're definitely going to get back to the hand. Don't worry. But what are your initial thoughts on Vampire Hunter D: Bloodlust?
Well, if I take off my nostalgia goggles for the original for a second, I actually think this is probably technically a superior movie in a lot of respect. As Jamie just noted, this is a gorgeous movie as far as like the animation goes. There are some stunning looking things in this film. And definitely the design of D looks a lot more like the book covers in this movie. I love, especially considering the fact that this movie is from, the early aughts. I love the fact that this movie is so unapologetically a vampire movie with so many classic vampire movie stuff in it. Like the big cloaks and crosses and big intricate coffins and, candelabras and all these things that we think of from like a classic vampire movie. And unlike a lot of other vampire movies that had that kind of stuff in it from, the 90s and the early aughts, which had that stuff, but they would always play it for laughs. This movie plays it completely straight. Like, it's like, well, if you're a vampire, you have all this stuff. Like this is how vampires are. And I it didn't strike me when I first saw this, because I saw this movie in the theater when it first came out. I didn't think about that now. It's kind of looking back at it now and now thinking about like all the other vampire movies that were coming out around the same time period, and why I kind of keep going back to this. I also love the batshit insane anime stuff in it. Like, I love the gigantic Mad Max anti-vampire tank that the Marcus Brothers has. I love the crazy mouth in his stomach werewolf, which I talked about on the last podcast. I think that's just an amazing conception of what a werewolf would be. And there's just so much good stuff about this. And when we first started talking about Anime Fest, and doing the original, I doing this one eventually, I wasn't sure if we would save it for another con or do it back to back, but I am kind of glad that we're doing it back to back now, so we can kind of refer back to that original movie while it's still fresh on my mind, as well as this one.
Speaking of the original, we actually saw the Snake Women very briefly at a point where he's going through the realm of the Barbaroi, these sort of immortal mutants who can be hired to protect any supernatural being. There's a moment where we see the Snake Women that he faced in the last movie. We see them from behind. There's this sort of like they're in the foreground and watching as Vampire Hunter D enters. It's really cool. I mean, I know that that's a reference to the novels as well, but if you were a fan of the original, there are things here that you recognize and you don't actually get lost. My thought is, this is a movie where I am completely in love with the visuals of this film, and the visuals and the concepts. And I remember being so inspired by it because when I saw this movie, like in 2003, which is like only about 3 years after it came out, I remember going, anything else you can think of, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Count Yorga, whatever, there has never been anything as visually inspired and mind-blowing as the world of Vampire Hunter D, as far as like all this sort of mystical, technological mishmash that's going on with the castles and the various technologies and just the look. It was all really amazing. At the same time, the dub is kind of disappointing to me. It's, in other words, you have to enjoy this movie and kind of mentally just sort of check out of the fact that the dub is probably not the best. The acting.
Yeah, but still done first, which is a strange way.
And I heard explanations that that the dub was done almost as a temp track, and that they intended to replace it later. On the other hand, I've heard lots of excuses about that kind of thing before.
I don't know about that, man.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest with you. Like, you don't get those actors to come in and have it be a temp track.
I actually think the voice acting in this is pretty good, and I honestly don't even mind the hand. I think he's funny.
Well, let me tell you. Okay, so let's get straight into the dub. In fact, let's make that our first topic. So here's my problem with it. I agree. There are some great voice actors here, like Dwight Schultz, and honestly, like Mike McShane. The hand. The problem is the script feels really strange, and I know that Tony will know exactly what I'm talking about. Where there's this thing where the character, forget the hand when you're not looking at the mouth flapping. In sections where a character is flapping his lips, they'll take whatever line there originally was in the Japanese, and then they'll just have the character say more or less what that line is, and then say it as many times as they have to say it until the person stops flapping their lips. So we have these lines like the wind is really kicking up. Isn't that amazing how the wind will blow sometimes, and sometimes it's very blowy, the wind. And, and that's the way it has to work until the character stops talking. And that's annoying, to just sort of constantly hear this repetitiveness happening. It doesn't sound the way you would write a script if you wrote it from scratch. Now,
I guess maybe that doesn't bother me so much because, like, that's part of watching anime to me. Like there's a line when the Marcus brothers roll into that one town that's like overrun with the sort of lower level vampires, and he's like, "It's zombie time," which is an absurd line. And then one other guy's like, "Come on, you zombies!" And it just, first of all, they're not zombies, they're vampires. But secondly, it doesn't sound like, even in the realm of this weird world that Vampire Hunter D takes place in, it doesn't sound like something someone would say. But I just sort of associate that kind of thing with watching anime. Like when I'm watching anime, I don't let that bother me.
Yeah, see, that's the unfortunate part. For a lot of people, that is it. And you grew up and there were terrible dubs. And this is actually, the actors do a pretty good job. And, I think they sound pretty good. One of my favorites is still, the dub for Cowboy Bebop is still one of the best dubs. And this is kind of on the upswing. So we're leading towards dubbing actually being something that works a lot better and not just an afterthought, cobbled together people. Whatever people you can get, and moving towards we have a regular cast and we're going to hire these people and they're going to do a really good job dubbing. We're moving towards that with D, and I think there's a lot of great performances. I think that there are a few lines where I'm like, that either was ad-libbed or, some kind of, if that's the script, then man,
it needs another pass.
Yeah.
I mean, but when it comes to that talking hand, by the way, and by the way, All You Zombies is a great, there's a great song from the 80s called All You Zombies by the Hooters, and I wonder if this was a slight reference to that. But anyway, when the hand is talking.
There was something the hand said, and I should have written it down. Now I'm really mad. There's a reference that he had, and I was going to talk about that. Now I've forgotten it. But the hand says something, and I'm like, oh no, he's going through the desert, and again, this is why I think it is. And he goes, nice horse. I wonder if he has a name. As they're going through the desert, and you're just like, dude, okay, trying to be subtle, but man, really?
Yeah, that was probably a riff. That's actually not a bad line. I got to say, when he goes, you ever heard the expression "too close for comfort"? That was way uncomfortable. I'm like, there is no way anybody heard these lines and laughed out loud, or in my case, it was rare to crack a smile all the time when this hand was talking for the hour and 40 minutes that this movie goes on. I keep wishing that the hand would get a rewrite, honestly.
That's what I said. I just felt like it was just shut up. Somebody stop him.
Some of the bits were decent. But about a third of it Because he does. I mean,
well, the last line in the movie is pretty funny, and that's from the hand.
Yeah.
You're not all bad. You just dress bad. Like I actually think that's kind of funny.
That is a good line. Yeah. That's true. So I guess what we've come to is the hand talks so much that he really needs more material. And I feel bad.
I don't mind it. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm okay to be the minority on this one. I actually kind of like that the hand has more dialogue in this.
All right. I mean, okay.
Well, I mean,
so
we're saddled with a hero that does not talk a lot.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, we have I think one of the reasons why I think that this movie is better is you have the Marcus brothers, which are, they're anti-heroes. They're sort of secondary antagonists. But,
right.
so you have them for, like, a secondary arc. And then you have the hand, which, he serves a lot of the same purpose that he does in the books and in the first movie, is that he lets you inside of Dee's head a little
and
bit.
He also does, he does, rag on him all the time. Or, like, oh, I guess you don't know about this, or I'm just a parasite. Like he provides that throughout the book. Yeah.
Although, how is it like? And it's been perhaps too long since I've read the book that this is based off of Demon Death Chase, right?
The Demon Death Chase. I've just been reading it. So
how exactly is he He seems more like a symbiote. Like, what does he do that's exactly negative?
Oh, no, that's exactly, it's very symbiotic. It's kind of also a little bit of a play on Elric, I think. The hand helps him out, but also he has a host for whatever parasite's hand is. Yeah. And, it helps him, he's searching the shelter with the hand. The hand he's like, hey, can you see inside?
He has powers, that's true.
So I was...
Yeah, he eats spells.
Yeah.
It's like, suck up this spell.
It's pretty interesting, how their relationship is. He's also Dee's, only companion for huge stretches of while Dee's just wandering the wasteland.
He's part of a long tradition. I'm sorry.
Yeah. In the book, the Marcus brothers are way less sympathetic. And, they even allude to the fact that if you're a vampire hunter against them, you may wind up dead, and they might just blame the vampires. And no one can prove that they've gotten rid of people. But that's the rumor. Also, there's no Carmilla at all in the book.
Yeah, that was an invention, because I read the book after seeing the movie, and I was actually surprised that Carmilla wasn't.
And the Barbaroi are a way more Nightbreed, which is, I'm totally cool with that. There's a lot more Barbaroi in the book, which is interesting.
Although, if Clive Barker were to do a werewolf, I could kind of seeing it be like the werewolf in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the Barbaroi bits are really cool. That Bengi character is just a freak. It's awesome. But there's also a lot more tech in the books, too. And they go a lot more into the world of, the reason that all the vampire stuff looks like is because the nobility have been around so long that, of course, everything is just super Baroque or Gothic or,
I love
ornate.
that even the spaceship looks like that.
Oh, no, that's amazing. And then, but even, they have it even more where there's at one point in the book where Borgoff calls down a laser from a satellite that basically he's tries to get D. So the tech and the way that it all works and how it works with the nobility is actually way more ingrained in the books, which I think is even more fascinating. I like to see more of that. But so there's even more laser stuff where D's flipping rocks and the lasers are shooting at it and stuff like that.
He does
all this technology.
There's a bit here where he flips the rocks.
That's what I'm saying. It's I don't think that's in the book actually, or if it is, it's at a different point. But yeah, all the tech stuff that makes the world so interesting. This mix of high fantasy and horror along with tech, and it's kind of similar, although it's lost tech in the Dark Tower series. they'll come across robots and stuff in the world in the actual Dark Tower world, the world of Roland. It kind of reminds, they kind of go hand in hand, which I think is really interesting.
The way I always thought the tech and everything is presented in this is as though they took great concepts of manga, and I mean, stuff like, Midnight Eye Goku, very techie kind of stuff, and then they took the sensibilities of like Hammer horror and sort of, if you imagine just being a wizard and grabbing a box that has Hammer horror in it and just sort of stretching it, so that all of a sudden, like carriages get longer and even more baroque, and towers get taller and way more strange and spindly, and vampire capes get, they're capes, just like Drew said, but they get bigger and they get alive.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that music.
Right, and the music
soundtrack
goes from
great,
just like
chords.
Yeah, you've got what music are you thinking of, Jamie? You're thinking of like all the organ stuff, or
all the organ stuff. It's very intense, like very like liturgical. It's funny because I watched it last night, and then I watched like parts of it again this morning. But I was like kind of dozing off, and at one point, because I just kind of like blinked too long, and I opened my eyes hearing that music, and I thought I was going to like open up to see like Damien from The Omen.
Yeah.
Like it's, the Dorenos, like it's very, intense, and like that was one thing. I was like, oh man.
The whole thing is like hyper Hammer. It's like taking the Hammer universe, the Hammerscape, and then just sort of pumping it through this sort of way alive with possibility, anime sensibility, where you can draw any damn thing you want,
I love the opening sequence with Meyer Links. It's probably one of the best scary, even though we learned that, by vampire standards in this world, Meyer Link's kind of a pussycat later on. But as far as like a scary vampire scene, like his carriage riding through this village and all the crosses get bent as the carriage goes further.
I stole huge amounts of this for my Alex Van Helsing novel series. I didn't even remember that I stole this.
Well, I love that the water turns into ice, the roses die, and then like when you would expect when you get to the point where the window opens up, where it almost feels like something from the Langella Dracula with him crawling up the side, but instead you have Meyer Link hanging upside down like a gigantic bat, and it's like all that stuff. If you grew up on Hammer, if you grew up on Universal, like that's going to like strike like this really strong, like classic vampire movie chord, but it's stuff that it's also a lot easier to pull off in animation too.
It's like those ideas get their ultimate expression in animation. At least in 2000 they did. Look, now we can do way more incredible stuff with CG.
They did try to do something like visually similar to this several years later with Van Helsing, but it was all super tongue-in-cheek. This is, again, no irony here.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, the animation studio is Madhouse, and they're no slouches. If you look them up, most of the stuff a huge chunk of the things that you dig are Madhouse. They've been around a while. Demon City Shinjuku, for example, Wicked City. I mean, Madhouse, there's a lot of stuff that they've done. So they're not, this isn't their first at bat. And they make it. They pump they're all into it,
I want to mention really quickly, just like in like 30 seconds, just what the plot of this movie is. So we open with that scene that Drew was talking about, where a beautiful woman wakes up and a vampire is at her window after a very dramatic ride into town. And then our hero, Vampire Hunter D, is one of two teams. He's a team of one. There's a whole other team of bounty hunters, who we'll talk about in a second, who have been hired to bring the girl back because her family says that she's been abducted. And the movie has our hero going to try to bring this girl back, and then having to face
dead or alive, by the way.
Dead or alive. And he has to face the possibility that she might not actually have been abducted. And that's actually a plot that I swear I've seen before, maybe even in certainly in at least one episode of Star Trek, but I think maybe in one of the Clint Eastwood westerns. And in fact, that hand, the parasite talking hand that Dee has, is really taking the place, because this is fantasy, so you can do anything you want. The hand is taking the place of Eli Wallach in the Clint Eastwood movies, or of Sancho Panza in The Man of La Mancha. It's his companion, so that we, the audience, don't have to just watch this silent person wander through the film without ever saying anything for the whole period.
In the book, by the way, all the vampires in the graveyard are actually the people of that town. Like, the town's gone, and the guy's like, hey, everybody in the town's turned except for my daughter. You need to get her back. And if you bring back, either her or a memento of hers, somebody else, a relative, will actually pay you. And so when they fight the town, it's actually like that town is all of those vampires, which makes it even more scary and sad.
So in the movie, it says that the vampires' numbers are dwindling because
the nobility, the people have been killing off the nobility.
Right. The tide has turned now, because in the world of Vampire Hunter D, the 1985 movie, there was really an impression that the people were definitely endangered by the vampires, and in this movie, it seems like the tide's turned, and so there's a kind of sadness to the vampires themselves that they're losing. And later we'll hear some debate between the vampires about, like, how should they be orienting themselves towards humans. Are humans cattle, or are humans just other people that you can be in love with? Let's talk about, before we get to I want to talk about the Barbaroi, but let's first talk about the Marcus brothers, because the first major characters that Dee runs into are his rivals, the ones who are also working the same contract to bring back Charlotte, the girl who's been abducted. And they are, you said, Tony, in the book that they're a lot harsher. Here, they're kind of lovable. I mean, there's
they're a lot less likable in the book. And also, it's funny they call them the Marcus brothers, because Layla is a sister. It's a whole family.
Yeah.
It's the Marcus family, actually. But all of them, like, they're cool.
Is she the sister?
Like wisecracking. Yeah,
I don't know.
I thought there was somebody that I thought she was somebody that joined up with them later.
No, in the book, she's the youngest sister.
Oh no! I think in the movie. Okay, all right, yeah.
In the book, she's the youngest sister. So, but and so it is more of the Marcus family. But yeah, they're not nearly as, they're the best at what they do, but they're not nearly as likable and affable as they come off.
But here they really
which I think is a good choice, actually. If you're going to have, it makes an interesting rivalry if you actually kind of dig what they're doing as well.
Well, and you better, because you spend a lot of time with them. I mean, you've got the main guy, Borgoff. He's the boss, and he is a chatterbox, a cigar-chomping chatterbox who uses this cool
I
sort
love
of...
him.
Yeah.
Like my favorite character.
They definitely, there's a little bit of 80s Wolverine in Borgoff.
Yeah. You're right.
I think he had I got the feeling, I was like, he has like such a man crush. Like, I know, Tony, you said in the book that they talk about, like, isn't he?
Oh man, he's, by the way, if you're wondering, in the book, Dee is just as beautiful as ever. Like, if you had any doubts, if you read the book, he is handsome as all get out. He's beautiful, striking, well-formed.
Yet everybody hates it.
Like, get out your thesaurus for beauty and haunting beauty and striking.
He's like the male version of Catherine Deneuve. I mean, everybody just sort of like, I mean, even the old man of the Barbaroi, he says something like, And also, you're very good looking. I hope you do not mind the noodlettes like myself who make such a comment. I'm like,
yeah, but all of that
little unicycle man.
Yeah, all of that comes out a lot. Like I said, if you want to get drunk, you make a drinking game out of that. You'll be out by a few chapters.
People do love Vampire Hunter D. Anyway, so yeah. Okay.
Morgoth, is affable enough, but I mean, can we all agree that by the end of the movie he has kind of gone full Ahab?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes. I'm talking about in this initial section when we first meet them.
Yeah. I loved his foreshadowing though. Like that's the his little line about how basically we're doing it all, we can help, but it's not the destination.
He even feels he can afford to be magnanimous. Yeah. You got Nult, who is the big dude, who is, we don't know much about him other than that he's a pal and he's a giant, and he has that big ass silver hammer. You've got a sick psychic who lies inside
Grove.
Yeah, is he called Grove? And he is able to. His power is that he can send out. I mean, all of these people have like X-Men style mutant powers. Grove's power is that when he's physically strong enough, he can send out an astral version of himself that sends out light beams that can obliterate people, which is wonderful.
Pretty good power.
You got Kyle, the sarcastic dude with the knives, and then you've got Layla. Layla, to me, is a really cool love interest for Dee, in as much as these guys are so laser focused that their love interest it's only an interest. It never even actually goes anywhere. But nevertheless, she's clearly a romantic foil for Dee, and she's dressed like a red Pat Benatar. It's very strange. She's got this red motorcycle outfit and big shoulder pads and this sort of yellow shag haircut. I love Layla. I love watching this character. You have a genuine wonder if any of his characters are going to survive, but she is the one who actually gets to survive to the very end and beyond. And I have to say, I really did admire how her story was handled. That part, everything else is often quite melodramatic, but the end of Layla's story, I thought, was really nice, and I was very impressed with that.
I thought she was kind of mean. Like, I thought she had like, she's like your best frenemy. Like, she would, they would have this nice little heart-to-heart multiple times. Like, Dee, like, saves her butt. He's like, oh, you called out for your mother. Like, after she insults him, and pulls one of those, like, a very juvenile, like, what are you, my mother? And he's like, well, that's who you were calling out for.
Well, also, I mean, at the end of the day, he's still half vampire. And,
yeah, exactly. Like, everyone wants to remind him. Like, I feel bad for Dee. Because, like, Dee's just going around doing the right thing. He's not, like, getting any reward. He's not even getting any poon.
Well, he's getting $20 million.
What?
He's getting $20 million.
That's true. That's true.
He's getting some reward.
Yeah, but his reward is actually just killing vampires.
Yeah.
Plus, he's lived long enough. I mean, even if he did, there's a couple things going on. Even if he did get, because he's always kind of spurning romantic advances, and I think again it does go back to this weird Oedipus thing that he's got going on, where his mother is sacrosanct because she was with, Dracula, and there's a lot of stuff there, as well as he's been at it long enough that he kind of has this fatalism of, well, A, I'm a hunter, so it's not like you're going to come along with me and survive, and B, I'm going to outlive you no matter what. Yeah. So there's a certain fatalism to it where, his whole thing is kill as many vampires as possible because they ruin the world. They ruin his mother. That's what he does, And he's got a parasite to show for it, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how many times. I mean, the hand has saved him numerous times, so
the hand certainly does.
Begrudgingly, accepts his lot as invincible, beautiful super guy.
But there are plenty of women in this universe who would be perfectly happy to spend a week or two with Vampire Hunter D.
Oh no, well that happens. That kind of thing is definitely in most of the books. Man, you're dreamy, and he just kind of is like, yeah, but I'm a hunter, and you're human. This will never work. I've got to go hunt some stuff, and you'll probably die soon because.
Why doesn't he hook up with another Duntil though?
I guess not that many.
Yeah.
Well, the other, I guess, what's-her-face died in the last movie.
Yeah. Also,
Lamika.
Also, usually, he's killing all of them. Or, like Lamika, they'll be, tied to nobility, and it's his job to lay waste to all of the nobility. So, that's that.
Well, and he also says this thing, they go, why don't you become a vampire, at least in action? Like, why don't, you could just as well be out preying on people, and he says, if I do that, though, a hunter will come for me. I mean, in other words, he really believes that there's a kind of circle of life going on here, and that if he joins the other side, that basically the long swords will come for him.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. Oh, and there's also, I got to say, in this world that's both these bounty hunters are moving through, there's a Blade Runner thing going on. Remember, in Blade Runner, all these people had gone off-world, so the world is curiously depopulated. And not just from people being dead, but because vast numbers of the population have gone. The vampires have left. And I presume the people have left as well. And so there's just not a lot of people left, which means apparently there are like planets of vampires out there.
Well, I get the impression that they're kind of, if I remember correctly, maybe it's in the book, that, the best place to be a vampire is the dark side of the moon.
I'll bet it would be. That would make sense.
There's no, you can't get, so I can't remember if there's a base there or if there's a station or if the rocket goes there, but basically that's, if you're going to get off planet, that's the safest place to be. You're never going to get sunlight. It's going to be, great. But also, in the first one, you talked about how it seems like the vampires are still in control, but that's on the frontier. So a lot of these happen on the frontier. There's still huge cities where there's vampires, but there's also cities where I can't remember, they're not called the Federation, but it's something like that. There's like an actual government that's sending out hunters. So we've reached this point where everything's at odds, but the number of hunters, are increasing and the number of vampires are decreasing, both out of boredom, even though they've become more powerful, they're actually being whittled down because the humans have just outlasted through sheer tenacity. Even though, and the vampires for some reason have decided, I think there may have been some of that, but they haven't used, if they used them before, they haven't used nukes again, which they have to because they have to feed on somebody. So, it's this damned if you do, damned if you don't. Plus, they can't, they can't go out in sunlight, no matter how powerful they are. They talk about even the most powerful vampires will, usually go mad if they're out in the sunlight for, 10 minutes. Even if they can take the pain, it drives them crazy, so.
Why it also seems like Dracula is knocking off some of the vampires that he doesn't care about because he's the reason why Carmilla is in the state that she's in. Right. Is because he just got sick of. He was just like, oh well, I may be Dracula, but you're a glutton, so I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting interpretation of the Dracula character as being genteel enough that he's troubled by gluttony. I'm curious, though, Tony, why, or if there's no answer, then, hey, this is just the way this world is. There are mutant powers all over the place. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to the Barbaroi in a second. But like we said, all these humans in the Marcus family, they all have mutant powers, or at least many of them do. Right. Layla and Gorgoth do not have mutant powers, but the other two, or the other three, basically do. And I guess this world has just moved on to the extent that there are.
Well, it's some some of it's traditional mutant, like war-torn nukes and stuff like that, and some of it's genetic engineering, which has taken a key place.
Yeah, that's
as
like
somebody mentioned. It's also like that may play a part in D being D as well. So.
Well, that's something, they talked about in the books that I actually remembered is that, even, the vampires started trying to genetically manipulate humans into being like monsters from the Middle Ages. So that's where, like, in the first one, you get the giant and everything. So, like, it as Tony says, like, the Marcus brothers may be the result of genetic tampering.
Regardless, by the time you've got those characters, basically you're in a world of superheroes, which is fine, Okay, so the Barbaroi. Next, we got to talk about the Barbaroi. So this is a full-on Nightbreed-style city of all manner of demons, mutants, monsters, technological wonders. They're all hanging out in this decrepit catacomb city that's, who knows, appears to be the wreckage of some old human city. But it is so bizarre and weird. I mean, their leader is an old man who's been there presumably thousands of years, who rides a unicycle and sort of commands the forces and will make deals. In this case, they come into the plot because they have promised to give a place. Meyer Link is the vampire that is on the run with Charlotte, and the Barbaroi have given Meyer a place to hang out for a little while, and they've also provided a small retinue of guardians who also have their own.
Yeah, they've been in the pocket of the vampires for quite some time. They have an understanding. They have some kind of pact, and so anytime a vampire needs to come through the city of the Barbaroi, that's what you do, and they'll protect you. I assume there's some price, of some sorts, whether that's money or just, letting them live or whatever. There's been some unsung pact, and that's how they operate. So.
Yeah, I mean, they'll even provide you, like I say, they provide guardians to go with you after you leave, presumably if that's the price you pay. Because Meyer, who we do find out Charlotte is on his side, Meyer is on the way to take his lover Charlotte to the castle of the ghost of Queen Carmilla, because even though she's a ghost, she nevertheless, wanders around and has a lot of power, and she's going to provide them passage off planet. That's the plot. That's the real plot of this movie, is that this vampire and his lover are trying to escape the planet while our hero, Vampire Hunter D, and his rivals try to catch them before they go, which is pretty great. And when you think about it, that's a really solid little plot.
So the whole movie up until the point where they get to the castle is a chase.
It is. Yeah. It's very, very mad.
I mean, there's some brief character bits, like the bit with the old man in the sort of Wild West town that they stop in, but. For the most part, we're constantly, this movie's constantly moving, and I think that's one of the things I like about it.
Oh, great. I mean, can't you imagine Mad Max getting this plot? Like them going, Max, my daughter was kidnapped by these mutants. Can you please go get her and bring her back? And actually, that would not surprise me at all if Mad Max caught up to them and realized that, in fact, the daughter escaped on her own and nothing is the way it seems. That's
a great bit too. It's even I think it resonates even more in the book, but in general, like it's great when he goes, "Oh wait, she actually wants to be with Meyer Link." Like, that's a different tale than what her father told me. It makes me also, now that I think about it, we should review Race with the Devil.
Oh, I'd love to see Race with the Devil again. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
That movie really, really moves. Absolutely.
But yeah, now that I think about it, we should do that. But yeah, I love chase movies, so this really works. And the time limit, of, hey, we have to get there and get in this rocket. We can't do stuff during the day. We have to find these shelters. Like, all the bits work really well as far as how they hit them, especially in conjunction with how Dee's hunt and the Marcus brothers' hunt intersect.
Yeah. It is very intelligently built.
First time I remember seeing something about, like, vampires burying themselves. I think that they do that on True Blood as well. But, like, it being so hot in Texas and it being summertime right now, all I could think of was, like, oh, man, Dee gets, like, heat stroke. Like, that's just basically, and, like, it's like, maybe Dee needs some Gatorade, like, some electrolytes. But,
what does Bill crave?
Yeah.
You'd have a hard time, too, because here it's like limestone with, like, a foot down. You have to really start digging. I mean, he's got vampire strength, so I guess he'd be okay, but, man, it would... Don't stop in the hill country there, Meyerlink. But that's why he has those shelters,
Well, I thought it was neat that he covers, that they're covering different kinds of ground. Like, they start out in something that looks like the Mojave Desert, and then, shortly they wind up, and in fact, Meyerlink's castle is a big reflective illusion box in the middle of the desert. But shortly thereafter,
that's the shelter that they have.
Yeah.
So while they're out in the frontier, the idea is that at some point you're going to be vulnerable, and so they scatter these shelters around so that if you need a place, you have to find one of these before the sun comes up. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
I love also, and I think if I remember correctly, it's only in the movie, the sand mantas, or he's jumping from manta to manta, and they're trying to get him. It's such a great scene.
Well,
Madhouse
so
really,
the use of nuclear bombs that there are now giant manta rays that live under the desert and leap out in vast, curling, whale-style migrations, and just, what an insane, I don't know, Herbert-inspired vision that is. It's really cool. I love this world. I just love this world. As a creative, I'm like, this is inspiring. This sort of tells you, you know what? Just go nuts. Just go. You know what would be really cool? Giant manta rays. Done. I think that's fabulous. But like I said, okay, so they leave the desert, and then they're in this like grassy area where it's still hot, but and they're just sort of moving. You really get the sense, like Drew said, that the thing is moving. I also wanted to mention when he fights, before we get to Carmilla, because next is Carmilla, but at one point when Dee fights with Meyerlink, Meyerlink has the vampire, his mutant power of sorts, because all vampires have different powers in these stories. His is that he can turn his cape into sort of this ultimate giant sword thing, basically, that he can duel with, that he can fly with. It can be really soft, it can be hard, it can be shorter, it can get longer. It's neat. I mean, it's almost like
when he heals, his clothes heal with him. It's almost like it reminds me a lot of Venom from Spider-Man.
Well, when I did sort of Dracula, this is how I kind of figured Dracula would work: is that nothing of him is actually any more body or less body than the rest of him. It's all manifested material that, in that case with blood. And now I realize that I think I was thinking about Meyerlink when that was going on.
Well, it's a combo. I think your Dracula's a combo of Carmilla's blood powers and Meyerlink's cloak. Yeah.
That cloak is amazing. It's really cool. You get at least one really great duel between Meyerlink and Vampire Hunter D with his sword, as they just sort of manage to get one another in just such a perfect point of stress that they can just press these two blades against one another for a very long time, trying to wait to see who is going to break through first. And the friction of their pushing is so great that the two blades are heating up and cracking. It's really wonderful. I mean,
outside of like his general awesomeness, I as the kind of default big bad of the movie, I like the moral ambiguity of Meyer Link because, like, okay, he really loves Charlotte, and there's never any point that you really doubt that.
Yeah.
But obviously he's got kind of a sketchy history because when Dee and Layla,
killer, yeah,
and he clearly killed and turned everybody in that town into these sort of zombie-esque vampires too. So I liked that because and Jamie was even saying that she rooted for him, and I kind of like to know about that.
I felt like I wanted both of them to make it to their dark city. I really liked Charlotte. I thought her dubbing was probably the best in the movie. I felt like her.
Although in retrospect, she does throw the entire town under the vampire.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, I think I feel guilty.
I'm gonna blow this pop stand. I've been on the frontier too long. Meyer Link, take me away, and screw the rest of the town. They can just become vampires. She didn't She didn't try to
convince him. She was all like Tammy Wynette, stand by your man.
Yeah,
the whole.
I understand.
The fireman thing.
I understand, but she didn't. She definitely didn't. She wasn't like, okay, well, if I go with you, I love you, can you not kill all of my families and all of the surrounding families and my dad? She's just like, I love him. I guess he's a vampire. That's what he does.
Guys gotta eat.
I just think that's not where the drama is. Yeah, this is a big operatic. Drama, I suppose. This is a giant operatic thing where she has chosen to be on the part of this great demon, and it is a great love, and the rest of us are just tiny people who are going to get squished.
Well, she does feel like they do have conversations about it towards the end of the movie that she feels a little funny about. She talks about the suffering of her family, because she left to go with him. Her family is now suffering, but she was suffering and wasn't happy when she was with her family. So I mean, it is at least. Also, we don't ever really get into how she feels about Link being a stone cold killer, but they at least touch upon the moral ambiguity.
Also, there's every he doesn't seem like the kind of person who would lie to her because he cares about her a lot. But there's nothing to say he didn't tell her no, I totally let everybody go. It's fine. Did you kill everybody? Oh no. They're good. Your dad, he's gonna miss you. The rest of the town, I mean, they're gonna be distraught. But we got away. It's fine. Okay, she's willing to kind of put that behind her.
No,
I thought when how what Carmela talks about keeping humans as farm animals, basically as livestock, and I thought
if you're going to move to the dark side of the moon, you'd better. I mean, it just occurs to me that if you're going to move to the dark side of the moon, you'd better keep some livestock because I can't. What the hell else are they going to do? Unless they have the ability to just grow blood in a vat and drink that when they get to the moon.
That would be something. He gets to the moon and realizes, damn it, all of the people blew out like the Martian, basically. Crap. What do we do now? That was a one-way rocket ticket, and there's no people.
Yeah.
That'd be right. That would be a terrible ending. I'm glad they don't show that. But that would be. Can you imagine? Yes, my love. We're finally free.
Of the squirrel and owl story.
Yeah, it's there used to be. They told me there were people here. Dadgummit. Just now what? That was a one-way rocket trip.
Can you explain to me the squirrel and owl story? Because I did not understand the
I
squirrel and
felt
owl
like that
story.
was foreshadowing. Like I was saying that earlier about like the life's about the journey, not about the destination. It's like that story reminded me of that, and I was like, oh, they're not gonna make it. Like I knew that.
This correctly, the squirrel spends all this time, all this hard work gathering up all this food, and then an owl carries him away, so the squirrel dies. And the squirrel's last thought is, "What's going to happen to all that food?" Was that the story?
Yeah.
I didn't miss anything. All right.
No.
Okay, I got it. I apologize. I just had a hard time following the story that Borgoff was telling, but I got it now, and that's pretty dark. So
it is dark. I thought that was
like
great, though.
It's Western, though. It's like Gene Hackman saying at the end of Unforgiven when he goes, "But I was building a house," when he dies. So yeah. All right. So last thing, we got to talk about Carmilla. Best damn Carmilla I ever saw. Honestly.
She's awesome.
Carmilla is a ghost. Her secret plan is, I need some frickin' vampire blood to rebuild my frickin' vampire body so I can get on this rocket and go off. And she is luscious and, mirthful and, her usual. There's actually, they don't have a lot of like weird seductiveness going on with Carmilla. She's just huge and magnanimous. She's amazing.
With a very, very odd hairstyle / hat.
Doesn't somebody actually say nice hat?
Nice.
I think Layla says that.
Layla does. She's saying what we're all thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
I suppose.
But
she is like, I will say this. When I hear women complain about the way comic book characters or anime characters are designed in absurd ways, this is the sort of character I think about, because she looks like she has about a 12-inch waist with like 44 triple D breasts. Like it is, yeah. She is. Her proportions are a bit absurd.
That's true. I mean, she's also super vain in a world where, people did. Not that this justifies it, but we did live in a world where people used to remove their ribs.
Yeah.
Used to.
Also,
still do, but
also, she's not a real body. She's a manifestation. So we don't.
Oh, I'm not saying we don't have to sit there and justify it, but I'm saying the character design of it is
this would be
this is the sort of character design that this would be one of the first things that come to my mind. I think it works fine in the movie. I'm not I'm nitpicking.
Oh, no,
I'm nitpicking.
I love her.
You're not wrong. It is one of those okay, really? But it works in the context of the movie just because it's super insane,
Yeah.
And also probably influenced by, Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, definitely.
As far as not the same hairstyle, but definitely there's the female version of that going on, at least a little bit.
I will say that this version of Carmilla, because the original Carmilla concept, and we did on this show, if any listeners are interested, we already did a retrospective all about Carmilla Karnstein, doing 3 Carmilla movies from Hammer, and we could, God knows, do more. But the original Carmilla was not a megalomaniac. She was a narcissist, so she would fall in love and make that person the most important person in their world and use them and then get tired of them and try to destroy them. That was her thing. Elizabeth Bathory was a megalomaniac who wanted.
Well, they definitely, and they also combine that,
Yeah.
Her blood powers
woman
and her, the way that she works is definitely, especially for an edition that's not in the book, the way she works is definitely a combo of the two.
Yeah.
In fact, he's, Dee is in this trance, and it's, blood as far as you can see, a huge literal bloodbath. which there's some great imagery. I mean, it's too bad too because the video game, the PlayStation game that is based off like you're in the castle and stuff. And man, that's a terrible damn game. It's such a shame because the visuals are so cool in the movie, and that game is virtually unplayable and just boring and awful. I don't know how it ended up that way because I was so excited. Who wouldn't want to play Vampire Hunter D, especially in a world where there's other cool adventure games? But if you are reading and you listen to this and you've read the books and you're like, man, maybe I should hunt down that game, or you see it somewhere like, whoa, there was a game. Just stop and go buy something else that is more like play Devil May Cry. That's a better Vampire Hunter D game.
I think you just have more fun looking up Vampire Hunter D cosplay because I got to say,
or just the manga and read that. Just know that there's a game. You could probably watch somebody play it on YouTube and you'll get everything. That's probably a better. Yeah, don't spend your money if at all possible. Don't be a sucker like myself because man, that's a terrible thing. Oof. And it takes place in such a cool area, in such a cool movie. Oh, frustrating. Well, as a person who's developed video games, like, that's one of those, like, I know how those things happen, but, because nobody, I don't think, sets out to make a bad game, but when you see such a cool thing turned into something really not good, it's heartbreaking.
I'll bet.
Because a lot of people have to work to make that thing that's not very good. A lot of people.
I often feel that way about the anime themselves. We've talked about that. Like, sometimes when you're dealing with some of this hentai crap, you got to wonder, what the hell is it like to go home every day and go, well, the next 4 weeks of my life are going to be spent on this one sequence that is really pretty grody.
I think you're like, man, I got to pay the bills.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
I think that's at the end of the day. That's exactly.
You got the skills to pay the bills.
Yeah,
and
those skills may be
pentakills.
Yeah, those skills
so
may be drawing tentacles.
The movie wraps up with Carmilla dead and Charlotte dead, and Meyerlink takes.
Well, I think.
Can Charlotte be revived? Charlotte appears dead at the end. Can she be? Once Meyer gets into space, do you think his next step is, okay, suckers, now I'm bringing Charlotte back to life? Is that a thing that he could do?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I think they hint at it, but I really do think that she's gone. Like at the point, like he can't revive her if she's dead. She could drink his blood. The turning of a vampire can't happen to an actual corpse, and I think it's too late.
Depends on how dead she is. I mean, I could come to your house and you look dead, and we could work on you for like an hour, and maybe you're not so dead, But it just depends. She might be
pretty dead.
She might be nearly dead, but just instead in a coma. I don't know. Who knows?
It seems pretty final, and I mean, it seems like this is supposed to be kind of a doomed romance anyway.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's even more doomed if you read it.
All right. So, and then the very, very end, we jump forward in time, and we are at the funeral, which is very lovely, of Layla, who actually lived to a ripe old age and is surrounded by beloved family who are mourning her passing. And Dee comes by, and he's pleased, and he has a conversation with a little girl. And he says, I came to give my respects because Layla was afraid that nobody would be at her grave.
Yeah. No one would ever bring her flowers.
Isn't that beautiful? It's really beautiful. I just thought that was fabulous. That was a neat payoff. So let's get.
Actually, do you remember there's a book called Tuck Everlasting, and that's something that happens in that book too.
Yes, it absolutely did. The book, the guy. She comes around, many years later to the point of the.
We need down.
So let's get our final thoughts on Vampire Hunter D and the one. So Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust. Jamie, you kicked us off. So
I like this movie.
Yeah.
I like this movie. I feel like it's definitely worth a watch if you're new to anime. Not a bad jumping off point. And if you're not, well, you probably already have seen it then. But I definitely enjoyed the movie. I felt like there was a lot to entertain you, not just with the with the weird dialogue, but with the aesthetics and just so many things where like it just came off as beautiful to me. Whereas just like the first one was, this one I feel like it's even more stunning. But I don't know, it's good. It has its flaws, but I think overall it's worth a watch, definitely.
Excellent. Did we go, was it Drew next? No, Tony next. Tony, final thoughts, Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust.
Yeah, I really like it. It is always weird when I remember that it was dubbed in English first, and that's kind of what the primary, vehicle. That's if you saw it in the theaters, that's all they released in theaters.
Yep.
The DVD, as far as I can tell, doesn't have the Japanese track on it. It didn't have subtitles. But overall, I think the dub's really good. Madhouse, knocks it out of the park as far as character design and animation. It's really sumptuous. There's a lot of detail, and that that's hard to do. Like that much detail, constantly animated, is pretty damn impressive. To be a co-production as well, and hey, this stuff is really popular in the States. Let's revive this thing. Well before the novels were out as well. Like the novels didn't start coming out until a few years back. So, with nothing to bolster it other than the success of the first movie, I think what we got is pretty awesome. And,
Tony,
some of the changes
I'm sorry, good.
No, I think some of the changes are definitely different, but I think they serve the story well. You kind of got to view it as, any adaptation. You keep some things, you throw out some things, and, neither disappears if you like one or the other, and you can like both, Madhouse,
you mentioned Madhouse, the production company, and I really apologize that I didn't know them by name, because when I think of the stuff now that I look them up and you mention it, the stuff that I love the most out of anime, things like Wicked City and Midnight Eye Goku and Ninja Scroll, those are all the crazy-tastic visions of Madhouse.
That's what I was saying. Anything you like is most of the stuff that when we talk about all of this, it has come from Madhouse, especially of that time.
They have this whole vision that involves essentially transformation, that things are always flowing one thing into another. There's a real sense of how things will just split apart and become something new and become something else, and so you see it here. They're doing old stuff. They're doing science fiction. I'm really impressed.
It reminds me, Jason. We should. I don't even know if it ever made a DVD, but in their roster, I see Pet Shop of Horrors.
Huh.
That would be a great one to do.
All right. Well, maybe we should come back after a couple of retrospectives and do some awesome anime horror. Drew, cool. What are your final thoughts on Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust?
Well, I think this is a gorgeous movie, and I was really happy to revisit it. I know everybody's talked about the influence of both of these films on them, and I just have to kind of repeat that like this sort of free-willing melding of the worlds of sci-fi and horror. I don't think my comic book would exist without that, because I definitely take a more retrograde look at the technology, but that sort of like monsters and classic monsters tropes slammed up against, sci-fi technology. Like that's all stuff I pulled from Vampire Hunter D. And I just been a great joy to spend the last few weeks thinking about this universe. I love, you talked about all the transformation stuff. Again, I got to give a shout out, even though he's such a small part of the movie. I love the conception of the werewolf in this movie. I really just, I would love to see someone attempt to do that in a live action film.
It's so crazy. It's hard to imagine.
It's insane. Yeah. And one of our young fans at Anime Fest, mentioned, how it made her think about The Thing, and the John Carpenter thing, and that's totally in there, while still also having aspects of like the Howling and the Wolfman, and it's just a crazy character. And thank you, Japan, for regurgitating our own mythology, our Western mythology, back at us in this strange way. So I love this movie. I love the way it takes classic horror tropes and reinvents them in this different way.
I have nothing to add to that. This has been really a delight to explore, and I hope that the listener, if for some crazy reason you've listened to this whole show and you haven't actually watched the show recently, go ye to Amazon Prime and check out Vampire Hunter D: Bloodlust, because it's there, and it's quite a vision. I found it very inspiring, and I think we all did, and I've really enjoyed getting back to it. Let's do our endorsements for the week. Whatever you think is going on that we got to know about. Starting with Jamie. Jamie, is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'm all about the new season. I think newest, the 9th season of Doctor Who. As Drew likes to call him, the Rocktor, with Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, who is pretty damn rockin'. It's been a great season so far, and Clara has become one of my new favorite companions. So, it's pretty damn good.
I have to, add an addition to that. I think, I really enjoy Peter Capaldi as like the 12th Doctor, pretty much from the get-go. But I think the direction they've taken this character this season, and sort of Capaldi being able to add like bits of himself into it, like the fact that the Doctor now plays guitar, which is taken from Peter Capaldi himself, has just added this new wrinkle. And there's particularly a two-parter that Jamie and I just watched, which it was called Under the Lakes, and then after the Flood. It was a two-parter, and I think that's some of the best modern Doctor Who that I have seen. In fact, I would, this is a controversial thing to say, but those two episodes smoke Matt Smith's entire run. Like, it's just like some of the best Doctor Who I think I've ever seen.
What's the one, without giving away any spoilers, what's the one where he has to hurl himself at a crystal wall for a long time?
Wait, what?
There's one where he has to, his only way out of a situation is to punch a crystal wall, break his hand.
With Peter Capaldi?
With Peter Capaldi. And
I don't think we've seen that one yet. We're only halfway through.
I won't say any more, and I haven't spoiled very much. But I found a lot of the episodes very moving, very moving. So I've enjoyed Capaldi a lot, and his next season is going to be his last season. He's going to come back for one more, and then that's it.
Have they confirmed that yet? Because I thought that was still up in.
That's what he said.
Today.
I mean,
I know Moffat is potentially is. Well, no, I know Moffat's not coming back.
Well, he said he was going to step out so that a new boss could choose a new Doctor. Now, look, anybody can change their tune, so who knows? But
I hope we get more of him, because I think he's fabulous.
Well, like I say, you're going to have one more of all new that hasn't even shown yet. So you'll have one more season with him at least. But we'll see. So very cool. That's
this has inspired me to double dip, and as soon as possible, I need to order the Blu-ray versions of both of these, because on a non-upscaling player, my DVDs, I'm usually not so concerned, but I want them to look the best they can.
No.
So I'm probably going to double dip on that soon. Also, I'm going to, I think I mentioned it before, but I'm going to go with Discotheque Media as far as if you want old school anime. They're kind of the saviors of all of that. Them and Right Stuff's imprint called Nozomi. And I'm going to go with those. Yeah, you should. And then also, I covered it in the column I'm now writing for horrormovies.net, but I was blown away by the black and white movie Kuroneko, The Black Cat. And Criterion did an amazing job. I would love to cover it at some point, but it is beautiful. Go theatrical lighting. It, again, like The Haunting, where there's very little non-practical, non-optical effects, but it is extremely effective. And I was really blown away. It inspired me to start writing again. So there you go.
Outstanding. All right, my endorsement is actually happening this week. Oh, I'm sorry, Drew. I thought you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see.
I thought you were Doctor Who. Go ahead. Go.
No, that was Jamie. That was Doctor Who. I just added on because I watched it
right.
there.
All right, then I apologize. Please, my friend, go ahead.
All right. Well, first of all, Tony, I wanted to say thank you for your column because all of you should go to horrormovies.net right now and read that. Well, I mean, wait till the episode's over, but afterwards, go read that because it's excellent stuff. But speaking of Mr. Tony, I when we got back from Anime Fest, I was wanting to watch more anime. Funny thing that. And I asked for suggestions on Netflix to watch, and Tony suggested Cyborg 009 versus Devilman, which is a crossover between two popular anime superhero series. And I'm familiar with Devilman. I've seen some of the Devilman cartoons, and I've read some of the Devilman comics. So like I knew that character. I didn't know a single thing about Cyborg 009, and I now kind of in love with those characters. Like I want to go and find out more about them. But it's an extremely enjoyable anime, and you could watch the whole thing in an hour and a half. It's only, the episodes are about 30 minutes each, and it's very short, to the point, and very action-packed. Well animated, and my only real complaint, I guess, would be I guess it's on Netflix part or whoever did the subtitles. The subtitles on Netflix are tiny, and so I found that I kept having to pause to go read it. So like Netflix, if you're not going to offer a dubbed version, make your subtitles bigger, because that was obnoxious. But don't let that dissuade you from watching it, because it is totally fun. And again, I can't wait to find out more about the Cyborg 009 characters. I'm going to have to hunt down.
To add to that, unfortunately, the manga that Tokyo Pop put out was not very popular. Old school manga just didn't really sell, which is sad. They did a new series that was released, and they only got like half a season or less into it, and it was not popular in the States either, so they only made like one box set of, actually the DVDs have more episodes than they actually aired on TV. But Cyborg 009, Discotheque, which I mentioned, has a box set of the Devilman TV series. Not the OVAs, but the TV series from, I guess, the 70s or 80s, which is still really cool. It's like a green-looking, way more superhero-esque in that incarnation. But yeah, Cyborg 009, Ishinomori, the creator, was one of the first his art was one of the first pieces of art I saw that was readily hey, this is from Japan, and it was an Epic Illustrated. I forgot which issue right offhand, and with zero context, other than here's this creator and here's his art. It's only like a 2 or 3 page spread in Epic Illustrated. That was one of the first things that stuck with me as far as art from Japan. So I was influenced by that, many, many, many years ago, growing up. And so seeing that Cyborg 009, readily available, that's always pretty cool. I say that his
love
design,
the character designs.
Yeah, now, granted, the original manga was in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken, and the African American character in that has definitely been redesigned now, because in Japan it was really like, there was a time where Japan's like, what do you mean racist? Like,
yeah,
this is how we draw black people, and it's really unfortunate because it's also part of why I think it would make it really hard to be popular, given, it was of a time. There's no really excusing it other than, Japan it's mostly, it's a very closed society. And so a lot of times you'd have an artist who's like, what? I don't see what's wrong with this,
Right.
But they were very cognizant of that in redesigning his character in the more modern setting. But yeah, I mean, you look at the art now, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I feel comfortable about this, knowing what we know,
Well, I'm glad I know that
that
going into that, but I guess I would have to look at that sort of how the same way I look at the Will Eisner, some of the stuff in the Will Eisner Spirit.
Oh, absolutely,
comics.
Absolutely. Like, there's no, it's unfortunate. I don't think it lessens the story, but you definitely have to take it as a piece of the time. And the character is still awesome. It's just his depiction was straight out of 60s Japan.
He seemed cool in all the characters seemed cool. I mean, the Native American character to me set off more alarms.
Sure.
Than the African American guy, but I still love the character designs. I love the costumes. I have that sort of like they're all dressed like World War I pilots almost, with these big flowing scarves. And then I think my favorite was 002 with his angular haircut and extremely large nose.
Oh yeah, he's great because he speeds, so that cuts through. He's very aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. In fact, I have a Cyborg 009 little model right on my desk right now. So, shooting missiles everywhere. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, well, I'm glad that worked out. Like, I love turning people on to cool anime. So that's pretty awesome. I'm glad you dug it. They're very
it's a lot of fun.
If you like X-Men, they're kind of in that vein. And the original, it's sad, the original manga deals with warmongers and people. The bad guys, basically, the villain is basically wants to create perpetual war so he can sell more war machines. And when I was reading it, like I was just, man, I wish this had changed. But we're still, 50, 60 years later, we're still kind of trapped in this, how things are. There's still people, war profiteers. Only none of them dress as cool as this crazy villain.
Outstanding. Okay. My only endorsement is something that's happening very quickly, which is Riff Tracks is doing Mothra, and I went to the performance last week, and they'll be doing it again on Tuesday of this week. And I got an echo. And then if you're not able to catch Mothra, just keep going to any of the live Riff Tracks. Anyway, so that is all we have this week. We'll be back very soon. And if you are enjoying the show, please join us on the Facebook page and leave comments. If you have friends who might enjoy the show, I won't even suggest that you do any of the terrible things to your friends that I normally suggest in order to get them to listen to the show. I think you should just simply invite them inside and play the show for them and wander away while they enjoy it by themselves or however you want to do it. So thank you very much. We will talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful
Good night.
Bye.